What is up, Cobra Kai fans? Welcome back to Cobra Kai Nation. Now, this is a little bit of a different video. I'm going to be reading your Cobra Kai hot takes. I do plan on doing this again, so if you want to make sure that you get into the next video with your hot take, comment them down below on this video, and I'll try and get as many in the video. So without further ado, let's read these hot takes. The Kreese flashbacks is the best story in the show. I can understand where you're coming from. It's very interesting. There's a lot to it. It adds more to Kreese, but I don't know if it's the best story. I mean, you're saying flashbacks are better than so many of the other character arcs. I mean, that's a bit wild for me. Fair point, but I wouldn't say hot take. As much as I love Eli Miyagi though, I wonder how he would have thrived under Silver's Cobra Kai, and often wonder what possibly could have happened if he never left Cobra Kai. Now, that is a hot take. Eli would have definitely been even more vicious than we'd seen. He was in Silver's Cobra Kai, and if he learned the Silver Bullet, and if he was learning the Cobra Kai that Terry Silver was teaching his students, imagine. He would have probably been even more savage in Season 4 Robbie, and potentially more savage in Season 5 Miguel. He could have probably been the best young fighter if he learned fully from Silver, and he was on the dark side completely, because that is actually pretty scary when you think about it. I know it was a big deal, but I kind of think they nerfed Miguel after Season 3. Miguel being nerfed is not a hot take. I mean, Miguel was injured, hence why in Season 3 he couldn't do a lot of fighting. And by the end of Season 3, he actually whooped Kyler's ass. And you have to remember, he was in a wheelchair for most of the season. And I think Season 3, he had a great season. Season 4, he didn't do that much in terms of fighting. But at the All Valley, you could tell if he didn't get injured, he could have probably gone all the way to the finale. I wouldn't say that they nerfed him after Season 3, because look what we got with Miguel. The cops had no grounds to arrest Silver in the finale. This is a hot take because Chosen, Mike, and Johnny did trespass and did physically assault Silver in his own home. And he did use self-defense, and Chosen also brought weapons, tried to kill him. Even though Silver drew a weapon on him, you can also argue this point that Silver was defending himself. He is in his own house. He's always going to have the advantage in this situation because those guys literally went straight to his home and thought it'd be a good idea to get Silver. The cops might not even arrest him. There is a big possibility, or he might only get a very short sentence. And with his lawyers and the fact he's tight with the DA, Silver's probably not going to go to prison. Don't be surprised if he doesn't go to prison, and if he does, don't expect it to be a lot. Cobra Kai is the best revival ever. Love everything about Cobra Kai, and each season is better than the next. Season 5's insane stories, and this whole season was built from the previous 4 seasons, so you have to give the credit to each season being that great, and it's built its own legacy. And now Cobra Kai bringing back these characters and doing all these things they're doing with the show and being original with introducing new characters as we've seen. It's fantastic, and it is the best revival show I've seen. It's so good what they've done with the Karate Kid franchise. And you know, there's been a lot of franchises that have been taking note, like the Mighty Ducks, Top Gun Maverick, they brought that back, and of course Creed. Those are films, but they've done really well in reviving. But Cobra Kai, there's nothing like it. The Mexico subplot would have been better as an entire series-long arc. I do kind of suspect that Hector will turn up in the Valley of his Goons next year. Whole season for the Mexico arc is just totally unnecessary. I think a lot of people did expect the Mexico arc to be at least half a season, but you know, I liked what we got. They needed him to understand everything about Johnny, being the actual father, and they also wanted to mature Miguel. I mean, he had to make this mistake for him to actually be more mature. These characters aren't perfect, and that's what we've seen in the show. I think a lot of people can relate to what happened to Miguel with the truth of his father. It hit me a lot because I had some very familiar circumstances with my father. Seeing Miguel doing that, it definitely got to me. Having it as an entire series long arc really takes away from what's happening in the Valley, because Robbie, Miguel, and Johnny there, like let's say for the whole season, then how do they go back to the Valley? What episode, and how are they going to go about that? Like, I don't like this season long idea. It just doesn't work. Maybe one more episode in Mexico would have done the justice. I do agree. I think Hector is coming back. I do not think they just brought him back for those 2 episodes in season 5. We've been waiting since the first season to see who Miguel's father is. We've finally seen who he is, Hector Salazar. We've got to see more from him. I think Luis Roberto Guzman did such a great job in this role, and I really want him to return. Every company should follow the Cobra Kai formula if they want to successfully revive a series of movies or TV show. Cobra Kai does it right. Totally agree with that. That's a hot take because the formula of Cobra Kai is so well done, and I think if you can nuance your characters from, you know, the previous film, have passion, have that desire to do better with the characters and maybe make it better than the predecessor. Like, I just don't get why so many people want to reboot stuff. Why don't we just want to continue it? Cobra Kai's formula is so great, and you can apply this to so many films and shows. And I think any film that needs a revival can be done in a series. But not every franchise needs a series like that, and maybe not even a film. So it really does depend. Cobra Kai in the Karate Kid universe is more compelling, rewarding, and holds up more than the Star Wars universe. Ooh, I know a few people that might not like this take. Could be a hot take because for me, I like Star Wars, but I'm not the biggest fan like some of my friends are. And I do think sometimes it can get a little bit boring, but Cobra Kai and the Karate Kid in the scale isn't as big, but it can be more compelling. So there is a fair argument there. I think it's because it's more simple than the Star Wars universe that people probably like it a little bit more in certain ways. For me, as a preference, I would probably say I prefer it more than Star Wars, because with Star Wars, I feel like as much as I like it, there's obviously recent things that have let it down. Although I do hope they do better with Star Wars in the future and we do get some better stuff. Cobra Kai or Miyagi Fang don't win the Sakai Taka. Okay, that is definitely a hot take, because if they don't win, so you don't have Cobra Kai, you don't have Miyagi Fang, that could leave us with Sensei Kim's dojo. She's not exactly Cobra Kai. You know, she had her own dojang before that, and we don't even know what the name is, we don't know what the identity is, we don't know what it looks like. So I want to know what exactly her dojang is like in Korea, and I also want to know how great are her students. See her students being as good as Robbie, Miguel, Eli, Sam, Tori. They're probably even better because they've probably been training their whole life, and these guys in the timeline have only trained for about a year and a half. There's definitely a big chance that they don't win, and I think if Sensei Kim won with her students, that'd be a bigger twist. Mitch's betrayal was surprising. I'll give that a hot take because I didn't think someone like Mitch. But when you see how they set it up, you can kind of understand why. It did confuse me at first, like how long was he a traitor then? But I don't think he really left. Johnny is more like Mr. Miyagi than Daniel is. Definitely a hot take. I feel like Miyagi said this in one of the Karate Kid films. He was a menace when he was younger. And Johnny was like that when he was younger. I think Johnny is going to turn out more like Mr. Miyagi than Daniel ever has. Like, Daniel has the teachings of Miyagi. If they ever interacted, I'm sure we would have seen a scene or two of Miyagi interacting with Johnny, and, you know, Johnny sort of understanding how when Miyagi was younger, that was very much like himself. I don't think Miyagi was like Johnny in the way we saw in the Karate Kid, but I do think he might have been a little bit arrogant for his own good. And that's how probably Miyagi was so humbled when he got older. I think the series is essentially trying to set up Johnny as a new Miyagi, and Daniel is Daniel. He has the Miyagi elements, but he's not so much like Miyagi. He's actually very different, but he will always follow Mr. Miyagi, and he has had Mr. Miyagi-esque moments, especially in season 5 when he was whooping Silver's ass in the dojo. But it is a hot take. Colonel Dugan is a friend of Silver's and will make an appearance in season 6. Source Boy, I don't actually know if this is a hot take. Colonel Dugan being his friend is more of a theory. I like this idea though. I mean, my personal theory is I think Colonel Dugan could know Major Payne, Kenny and Sean's father, because it feels more refreshing if they do that. Or if Silver just somehow knows Dugan, like, what is the relation going to be and why is he going to bring him into the story? Like, I just really would need to understand that. I hope we see him in season 6 or 7, because Dugan could be an interesting character. Doesn't need to be a main villain, but he does play a big part in the Julie Pierce story. I do want to see him return in some respect. What was the point of the Mexico trip? It didn't really amount to anything. This is a cold take. Definitely a cold take. I don't think the Mexico trip was pointless. I mean, personally for me, I got to really understand the story. It made Miguel more mature. He took big risks going on his own. He found out the truth himself. He was naive for doing it, but he learned the lesson. And that's the thing. Life lessons were learned on this journey. And he appreciated Johnny even more. And the reason why he went to Mexico is because after losing the tournament, he thought that was the one thing that was holding him back. And Johnny even said to him, like, he was scared to find out the truth about his own father. So Miguel wanted to make sure he doesn't make the same mistake. The whole Mexico arc isn't pointless. I think it holds weight, and I understand it, but I would not say it's pointless. Being Miguel's father, there's so much to that. I mean, I don't think it's the end of his father. I think we're going to see a lot more from him in the future. I think if you don't understand it, go watch it and understand more of why Miguel went and why they included this story. It's very important. Going darker and having Daniel confronting his very real trauma and abuse from Karate Kid 3 did wonders for the character, for the show, and even for Karate Kid 3 and Rewatch. I totally agree on this. Hot take, Cobra Kai Season 5 showed us that Daniel was traumatized by that experience he had with Silver. And I think him trying to confront that by defeating Silver in Season 5 was huge. And it was a very great storyline for Daniel in Season 5. And I loved how they confronted that. Very realistic how they went about it and how Daniel felt about what Terry Silver was doing and how he was so eager to stop him. And you could definitely see it was like a PTSD type thing, because Daniel did not want to let this go and he would go to any cost to stop Silver, even going on offense, as he said to Miyagi on his gravestone. And he said this to Chosen, that they're going to stop this guy. The show's premise would be worse if Mr. Miyagi was still alive. Ooh, it's a difficult one. I mean, they've been so successful without Pat Morita and Miyagi character physically being involved, but in a sense, if we had Mr. Miyagi in the show from day one, it wouldn't have been worse. I think it would have just made things a lot more interesting, knowing how would have Johnny and Miyagi interacted, how would the finales of each season include Miyagi, and how would Miyagi factor into the story? Would you have been proud of what Daniel was doing from the first few seasons of Cobra Kai? Would you have told him to let it go? Or would you have finally understood why Daniel was so against it? I think Miyagi would have definitely felt disappointed in some ways, but then he would understand more so, especially when he sees Silver coming back, and Kreese. It's not worse if Miyagi's in the story and alive. I think it just means we would have got a different version of Cobra Kai. And you have to think, Johnny would have interacted with Miyagi, Miyagi would have interacted with all those new characters like Miguel, Robbie, Sam, Tori, and he would have been a great guide for a lot of the new characters. I think he would have been so great to see Pat Morita in it. I wouldn't say worse, I would have just said different. But the show has been very successful and has honored the Miyagi character, even though Pat Morita is not in it. Dimitri is the best character in the show. His story of not having the natural gift but still getting far through hard work is great. That anyone can be the hero, you don't have to be Robbie or Miguel to go all the way. From that one delete scene is awesome. It's funny too. That could be a hot take. I don't think he's the best character personally, but he is definitely one of the best characters. I think it's a smart way of putting it though, because Dimitri was the same from, the beginning, and he's only grown and got more confident. I didn't like him in the first two seasons, but I did like him from season 3 onwards. And he's grown a lot. He stayed true to himself, and, he's worked hard being this better version of himself. He had some great moments in the tournament in season 4. He's also been a badass in general, like in the last couple of seasons. I mean, the moment he had in season 5, that was pretty funny. And the fact he had that moment against Kylo and the other two Cobras, that was funny. And Dimitri's just a great friend. He's a loyal friend. What he's done to still be friends with Eli, despite everything Eli did to him, it's pretty crazy. I think he's one of the best characters, but I wouldn't say the best. These were very interesting to answer. So thank you all for dropping your hot takes. Again, if you want to see your hot takes being answered and you want to see them featured in the next video, comment them down below on this video and I'll pick the best ones, or as much as I can, and I'll answer them. Guys, thank you for watching. See you next time.